Welcome back to part 2 of our delicious conversation with Mitch Russo. He was a strategic force behind people like Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes in building a $25 million juggernaut. He's a 2-time Inc. magazine Entrepreneur of the Year nominee, best-selling author, and software visionary. But then something happened. He sat by the ocean, shattered by a spiritual awakening so powerful it rewrote his anatomy of meaning. In part 1 of the show, we talked about what happened, how it happened, and the transformation that took place from there. And we talked about some of the illusions that people have about what it really means to have this spiritual awakening, that it's not some woo-woo thing, but it's something that's going on for all of us at some level or another. And oftentimes we're ignoring the signs. If you didn't catch part 1, I really encourage you to go back and listen to part 1. There's a lot of gems in there. But we're going to jump back into this because we want to talk more about the evolution of that, because that event happened. And then, of course, life goes on. And as Mitch was saying in part 1, there comes a point when I can't do this in the form that I've done it before. So as I said, it's not the thing that changes, but it's often the context. Mitch is still consulting and working with people and organizations, but in a different way. So let's talk about the evolution of where that's taken you in business, Mitch. Sort of walk us into that if you could.
So, one of the things that happened is that as I processed this change in my life, the key alignment factor for me came down to what challenges me in a creative way. How can I adopt my creativity in a more powerful way than ever before? And I will say that in the past, I felt challenged by doing the same thing I had always been doing. Every time I would take on another business client, I was pretty much covering many of the same things that we've covered with other clients. And it was almost boring. It wasn't quite, but it was almost boring. When I build certification programs, the most exciting part to me is the setup, the business model design, and of course, the actual creation of the new business unit itself. But after that, it's pretty rote. It's pretty straightforward, and that's not the part I like. So what happened for me is I started to sort things by how does this make me feel good? How does this bring me joy through my creative outlets? For some transparency, I've been creative all my life. I'm an award-winning photographer as well. I've won the Sierra Club. If you've ever heard of the Sierra Club, it's a California organization, but it's international. I won their Image of the Year award many years ago. I've been published internationally. I've had one-man shows in galleries. My photography has been exhibited, and that's just been part of who I am all of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But this is beyond that. I could always do photography. I could always be a photographer, and I still am and still love that. But for me now, the creativity has moved in new directions. One is in writing. I have never written so much in my life. I'm approximately at about 1 million words at this point and going. I actually have completed 2 full trilogies and working on a 3rd. And it's amazing how quickly now it just flows through me. So when people say to me, do you have writer's block? That doesn't have a context for me. If I feel as if I don't know what to do next, I just go back and reread what I already wrote. It's just like a car. You just jump in the car while it's moving. So as far as I'm concerned, for me, this is an incredible creative outlet that I love to do and continue to do. But then I was ignited, if you will, by AI. And when ChatGPT came out, I didn't even know what it was. I'm not always an early adopter, but I've been a pretty early adopter most of my life. But when ChatGPT came out, I subscribed. I wasn't quite sure why. I just paid the $20 a month figuring I'd figure this out. And next thing you know, the universe brought me people that would help me. And now I'm working in a small group with a mentor, and we're growing our skills very rapidly over the course of week after week. We're playing with new products. We're figuring out stuff we didn't have before. And next thing you know, I'm now working with clients. I'm training corporations on how to implement AI inside the organization. And I'm training professionals who aren't big companies on how to really up-level who they are using AI in ways that I had never even imagined was possible until recently. So for me, AI has been a big part of that. And it all comes down to the same thing, Dove. It's the creativity. If I don't feel as if we can use AI in a creative way to ask it to type a new resume up or write a blog post, is a waste of my time and certainly a waste of the AI's time.
It's interesting because you talked about photography and being a photographer and recognizing yourself as a photographer. But it's interesting to me the way people divide themselves up. Do you think that you sort of box that part of calling that creativity? Do you think you box that away? So it's like, I'm a photographer, but that's not about my creativity. That's just, I'm a photographer. Because it sounded like when you were talking early on that you kind of had yourself in this box of not being a creative, but being a business guy. Is that true?
Yes. And let me explain how that evolved for me. I had loved photography since I'm a little boy, but I've also loved music since I'm a little boy. And I had a band at one point in my life. And one of the things that my parents told me is, you'll never make money. You'll never be able to support a family if you play the guitar. You may have fun playing the guitar, but you'll never be able to support your family. So I realized that I could play the guitar, but I didn't have any talent. I just was fun noodling around and I could imitate some other musicians. And when it came to photography, I did have talent and I am talented and I am good at it, but there are others that are better. And with that idea, that stopped me from pursuing photography as my life's work.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a little bit sad about that because I always felt as if I'd missed out. So for me, when all of this happened and that awakening moment happened to me, I saw the mistake I had made. And I realized that my creativity was different than anybody else's, even people who I perceived were quote unquote better than me at it. But the bottom line is that now I'm starting new. So everything about my creative life is new. And as a photographer in the past, it was in a box. Absolutely.
Right. It's a fascinating thing, isn't it? I've talked to people about this many, many times in that we put things in these boxes and we don't understand that we're all of the boxes and we just got to tear down those walls. And people say, think outside the box. That's nonsense. The box is a construct and we've got not one box, but multiple boxes. And so we say, well, I'm a business person. So therefore, the creative, the photographer, that's a different box. I don't go there. As opposed to, I'm a creative who uses it in the form of business. So when I was a kid, everybody I knew, including myself, thought I was going to be an artist. My art was in a gallery by the time I was 10 or 11 years old. I was convinced I was going to be an artist. I don't do art as a full-time job anymore. I barely even sketch. And I remember being asked, do you miss art? I don't. And people said, why not? Because I'm still an artist.
Right.
The form has changed. I like the analogy of Michelangelo making David and being asked, how did you create David? And he said, I just chipped away everything else. That's the work I do with my clients. I'm chipping away everything else to reveal the David that's underneath, the magnificent beauty that's underneath. And that's a creative process that is driven by intuition and guidance and a bunch of knowledge and intellect, but it's not one or the other. What I'm hearing you say is in this awakening, you brought those pieces together. And now, is it fair to say that AI is a facilitator of that? Or is that a misunderstanding?
First of all, I'd like to make clear that what I realized after my experience was that there is no box. There were never boxes.
No.
And there never are any boxes.
No.
So that's just another illusion that we create. The ego creates to simplify the way we see ourselves as an excuse for being good at something and not as good at something else per se. So once you realize there are no boxes, you are the being that is creative all the time.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of how much joy you receive from the things that you do when you apply your creativity. The more joy you derive from those things, the better you'll be at them and the more you'll pursue them. It's kind of simple now. Before it was more complicated. AI is an amplifier. It is not a creator. You don't use AI to create. You use AI to amplify. If you use it to create, you will be very disappointed because you'll find that it's creating what everybody else is creating too. If you use it as an amplifier and have it drive you deeper instead of doing the same thing as everybody else or the same thing that you did before, now it takes you to a different place.
So AI was new to you as it was to us all with ChatGPT. were you sort of fumbling around in it initially, just like everybody else? Or were you applying it directly to this creativity that you had?
So I have a little bit of obsessive compulsive in me since I'm a little boy. Whenever I got interested in something, I became obsessed with it. Same with photography, same with music. It's just the way I am. So when I discovered AI, I became obsessed with it. And I started taking every course I could find. I started listening to YouTube videos and podcasts about it. And then I started applying it. And when I started applying it, I found myself applying it much differently than other people were as well. So when I would, for example, write, one of the first things that you're taught as a writer, and I go back to some of the lessons I learned early on about writing, is that you always can learn from the masters like James Patterson, any of these, the masters out there, the contemporary masters, the people who've published 50 books. But I can't afford to pay James Patterson to be my writing coach. Not many people could. I'm not even sure he does that. But what I can do is I could download all of his interviews, all of his teachings, all of his classes into an AI agent and critique the work that I'm doing. So it's as if I'm working with James Patterson. When I first discovered this, I actually had one of those holy shit moments where you have to step away from the computer and go, oh my God, what is this thing? That's when I realized that for $20 a month, I was getting the services of a $30,000 a month writing coach. And now I was able to take what I was doing to a completely different level. And that was just one example. And all of these have come up over the last 2 years when I work with clients. And I start at the beginning when I work with the client. Most clients don't know how fast and easy you can customize AI to you. Some people are afraid and think it's a privacy thing, but it's actually not. In the paid version, it's completely private, or at least they tell us that. I believe it for now. But when you do that, you unleash AI to do things that it can't do otherwise. So it can find and spot blind spots in your life that you can't see. And it could help you unravel mysteries in your life, might even be medical mysteries. And I've used it for that as well. So what I have now found is that as an amplifier, AI can take what I do and help me take it to the next level faster than any other way I've found so far.
So how are you using AI with your clients now on top of your own awakening?
Of course.
I want to make sure that people understand that the awakening is the catalyst to take you into AI, to take you into serving others.
So one of the things that we typically do is, and I'm sure we all do this when we work with clients, one of the things we want to do is we really want to understand what the blood spurting problem is. What is the thing that's driving or really giving them the most difficulty and the thing they want to overcome most? Most of the time, it's right in front of their nose. The solutions are typically right there. They're not far away, but it's hard to see because all they see is everything. And what we try to do with AI is we try to boil that down. So I have a client who has 16 books and they don't remember, I'm sure we've had this conversation, we've laughed about it. They don't remember half of what's in the books they've written. So what we do is we upload them and we create a custom GPT with those books and turn it into an agent. And then we take a business plan that we are working on together. And that business plan might be simply an idea. I have a group of people coming. I'd like to give a speech on one of the things that I'm known for, but I don't know where to start. So I said, well, why don't we just put it into the agent and see what happens? And so what we start doing is we start driving the agent. So we get an outline and we say, no, that's not good. Take it in this direction. No, that's not good. Go further, go further, go further until finally we get to the point where we now have a structure for something that we would have never reached had we not been able to use this amazing amplifier, this ability to look into 16 volumes of work all at once and find out specifically how that work applies to the very question that we're asking right now. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Who is that most useful to?
It's anybody who communicates. So no matter what you're communicating, if you don't use AI as an amplifier to help you uncover the things about the work you've already done, let alone new things, you're missing out, number one. Number two, if you don't use it to help you with the work you're doing, the specific clients that you're working with, or the products or product cycles that you're working within. I have another client that we were able to cut 20% of the cost of their product using AI doing things that might have been completely obvious if we were looking at it anew and not being able to see it in its simplest form. Hey, I spotted it right away. With another client, we're able to create a formulation for a new type of substance that made their manufacturing process, I would say, 25% more efficient and 10% less expensive. Here's the thing. Nobody takes the time to ask the questions. It's not that you need AI to do something for you. It's what question can you ask that you're not asking now? The creativity comes in asking the question, knowing that you could ask anything. And I mean anything of AI. And if you're careful and you guide it properly, and knowing that it could potentially, as they say, hallucinate, you'll get amazing output. Sometimes that kind of output that causes you to walk away from the computer in shock.
It's interesting because you're talking about two things that seem very separate that are actually the same. And let me explain what I mean by that. You can ask AI anything and it will tell you. Most people fail to ask, or they fail to ask the right question, or they fail to ask the deep enough question. But that's the problem with people in their lives. They don't ask themselves the questions they need to ask. And if they ask those questions, they don't ask them deep enough of themselves. And so the internal, quote, AI inside of them, the real intelligence side of them, can't answer because you've not asked the question you need to ask. I know this from the work that I do. I often will have a session with a client and they'll go, oh my God, why didn't I know that? And the answer is, you did. And they go, you're right, I kind of did. I kind of did know. I just didn't really want to know. That's all it ever is. That's exactly why I like AI, is because it's kind of a model for us to say, if you ask the right questions, you can get the right answers. But you've got to be willing to be brave enough to ask the question. So you just pointed out, you can ask AI, what are my blind spots that I'm not seeing? Now you feel okay because you're asking AI that. But what if you asked yourself that? What if you said to yourself, hold on a second, what if I'm bullshitting myself about this? What is it that I'm really not paying attention to? We might get some deeper understanding of ourselves, but we love to cling on to what we're comfortable with. So I think it's a beautiful metaphor. That's why when you and I were talking about it before we were recording many months ago, and I was like, yeah, that's what it is. The AI is an externalized version of the questions we're not asking ourselves.
Yep. It goes a little deeper than that, in my opinion, as well, because the more AI knows you. Now, you've done a few podcasts, a couple, right? You've done 6 or 7 or something like that, right?
I think I'm on number 11 now.
So if you were to upload all of those podcasts into AI, I'm going to read something off my screen. It says, now tell me, what is my hidden narrative and subtext? What is the one thing I never expressed, the fear I don't admit? Identify it, then unpack the answer and unpack it again. It will overwhelm you when you read the answer. It overwhelmed me. And what it does, and I don't mean just upload your podcasts. I mean, once you customize ChatGPT and you put in the information about yourself and you use it, you use the AI on a regular basis, then it really gets to know your writing style and the work you're doing. When you ask a question like that, you're going to get honesty at a level that you probably could never get from another human being or yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I know that there's several people who asked about their blind spots and they're kind of like, it's not going to be upset about telling you. It's just going to tell you. That's all there is to it.
Remember what we said, I think, in the first episode, the earlier episode we recorded, what I was telling you that in my life, up until that point, I just needed to be right. We all have that as part of a characteristic. Human beings need to be right. That's how we operate. That's how we survive, by being right. Well, what happens if we're not right? Then that's what creates the blind spots. That's what creates the interference, the interfering signal to the truth. And that's what AI is able to sometimes see very clearly when we can't. And that's why I love it.
What do you think got you to the awakening? Like you said, you had lots of moments before that you ignored or weren't big enough, or you can say whatever the reasons were. But What do you think got you to that final point?
Well, there was a desire, and the desire was something that used to be an old rock song by Deborah Harry that went along the lines of, "Is that all there is?" I had that echo through my life repeatedly. Is that all there is? Sure, I built a software company and sold it for all this money, but is that all there is? Sure, I bought this big house and filled it with Mercedes and Porsches. Is that all there is? Sure, I did these things. Is that all there is? It's that question, is that all there is? Knowing that there was more, but I didn't know where it was, how to find it, or if it in fact was true. But I just never stopped asking the question.
And I think that that's the great challenge for so many people, is that that question does echo, but it's pushed to the side. And usually, I will say this, usually it takes a catastrophe for people to pay attention. And to be clear, that doesn't mean they'll pay attention then. So it might be a heart attack, it might be a bankruptcy, it might be a horrible diagnosis, it might be a loss of a loved one, or whatever it might be. But I can clearly remember visiting a friend who had had a triple bypass, who's in the hospital, who was like, "Oh, this has changed me. I've got it now. I realize I've missed so many birthdays and anniversaries, and I'm going to change. You've been telling me this for years, and I got it. Okay, great." And then I bump into that person 4 months later, and they're doing 60 hours a week. And I go, "What are you doing?" And they go, "Well, this is just who I am." No, it's not. That's just your identity. You're so addicted to this identity, even the warning sign, even the catastrophe, even the awakening isn't enough. It's not just for the event to happen. Like all those, is this all there is? Those are not enough. It's the moment of stopping and going, all right, that moment, and I think it's different for everybody. What is that moment for you? As you listen to this, what is that moment where you will say, okay, you go, well, I can't do it yet because this, and you can't do it because of that. Well, I'm just going to give you an analogy, and the analogy is this. If you were ever in a bad relationship, and who the hell hasn't been, if you were ever in a bad relationship, I want you to think about how long it took you to get out and how long it was when you knew it was already dead.
Right.
Many people in a 10-year marriage were done at 2.
Right.
They had 8 years of bullshitting themselves or trying to work stuff out in their head when in fact it was done. And I think that that's the same thing with this. Is that all there is? I fell off a mountain, but you only have to twist your ankle. You don't have to fall off a mountain. What's the little signal here to say, what am I not listening to? That whisper, that soulful whisper that's so important. So what would you say to that person, Mitch, particularly if that person is like you, a blueprint business person, buttoned up, all the things that you were, very successful, and they're going, yeah, you know what, this is all a bit woo-woo for me. What would you say to them?
I think it's about listening. When you're in that place, particularly when you're successful, you shut out a lot. You shut out the little voices because the big voices are what's basically filling your bank account. But the little voices are the ones that need to fill your heart. And if you're not listening to those, then you'll have a big bank account and an empty heart. And I decided that it was time to reverse that equation. I wanted a full heart, and I didn't know how to get it until I started really listening to the little voices. And for me, that is really what has driven me since. It's now the prominent voices are the little ones, not the big ones. The prominent voices are the ones that come through in the silence, not in the noise. And those are the voices that I believe contain the truth for me. This is not religious, it's nothing to do with that at all. It's about being in tune with who I truly am. And by the way, I think we all have those little voices. And as you said, we all enter the void. We all have the divorces and those horrible times that drive us. It's what we do with them that changes the outcome. And that's frankly what my book, Sacred Crossroads, is all about, where the protagonist has a choice. He could either stay doing what he was doing before and bypass a lifetime opportunity to truly awaken not just himself, but his family and his whole community, or choose to stay the same as he was. So it's these moments that bring us to the point where we have to decide, I no longer want to be where I was. And I don't know why, or I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I won't know what it is until I step into it. That's the most important thing.
That to me is it. I think that this need for certainty gets in the way because the only way to enter into the new world, the new life for you, whatever that means. I know even that sounds woo-woo. My quote is, you can't get to where you want to go while you're hanging on to where you were.
Exactly.
And it's just impossible, but it's so difficult for people to do. So, Mitch, what haven't we talked about here that you really need to let people know, whether it's about yourself and your journey or a message to them? What haven't we talked about that we really should have?
There's one thing I wanted to discuss because it was very important for me, and it was a big, big realization after I awoke, and I realized that I had spent a lot of time trying to please others. I had spent a lot of time caring about what other people thought of me. And one of the things that got me into trouble over the years was doing that unconsciously without realizing I was constantly doing it. And so now the only two people that I care about in terms of what they think of me is my daughter and my sweetheart, my partner, Mila. Other than them, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. And that's a change in how I acted and who I was before. It's also, by the way, an invitation. If you find yourself caring about what other people think, stop it and see what happens. See if they like you better or worse. You'll find that once you stop caring, you're more you. And once you're more you, people like you more because you're more you. Nobody really likes the you pretend to be when you're trying to please others. And that's what I discovered as part of my process as well.
To clarify that, when you stop caring what people think about you, it's not that you stop caring. You are still going to be a caring person. In fact, you'll probably be more caring. And I think we even use the language, and my wife catches me on that language when I say things like, I don't care. And she goes, you're the most caring person I know. Why do you keep saying that? It's not that I don't care. It's that I'm not invested. I'm not invested in what your opinion is. It's okay. I care deeply about you, but I'm not invested in you agreeing with me. It doesn't matter. You can just do whatever you want to do, and I'm going to love you anyway. It's going to be fine. I can also choose to have you in my life or not. Doesn't mean I don't love you. That's a very interesting point. So thank you for bringing that up. Mitch, we're about to come to the end. I want to make sure that people know how to find out more about you, about your new book, about all of your resources. Please let people know they can find out more about you.
Sure. My business website is mitchrusso.com. And by all means, if you're interested in my business life and the things I've done there, please go take a look at that. If you'd like to explore a little bit more about my work as a channel, you can go to channelingmax.com. Again, not something I know you normally talk about on a show like yours, but that's who I am right now. And that's been a beautiful part of me evolving. As far as my new books, as they start to come out, the website that we're starting to build now will be my author website. It will probably be just my name, Mitchell. Instead of mitchrusso.com, it will probably be mitchellarusso.com. That will be my author's website. If you go there now, it doesn't exist really, but everything else is happening at a beautiful pace that I'm very excited about. And when this show comes out, I don't know when that will be, but it might be up when the show comes out.
Beautiful. We'll make sure again that all that information is posted in the show notes. Please stay with us till the very end. For you, ladies and gentlemen, remember those who control the meaning for the tribe also control the movement of that tribe. Leaders who are committed to positively shaping the political and business landscape know that they must tap into what drives human behavior. I'm Dov Barron. I show businesses, teams, and leaders how to harness their emotional source code to move their tribe, because unified actualized meaning is the single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. Remember, we need your help in staying relevant, so please go to wherever it is that you tune into the show from. Do us a favor, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And of course, a big thank you to you, if you are a regular listener, for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how many times you've been awakened and nodded off back to sleep. And by that, I'm not talking about slumber of the night, but the slumber of the soul. How often has your soul given you a little shove, a little nudge, asked you to awaken? It doesn't mean you can't pursue success. It means you can pursue meaning while pursuing success. I'm Dov Barron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, life and leadership impact. And I am out.